Now that we're all set, I would like to say thank you to Senator Chris Coons and welcome him onto the stage. Chris Coons is the former Senate Foreign Operations, State Department and Foreign Operations Appropriations Chair and Ranking Member, and you're now the Ranking Member of the Lead Appropriations Subcommittee for Defense. Correct. So you've gone from soft power to hard power. Yep. But I want to say that when I bumped into you in the hallway the other day, it seemed like soft power was still a big part of what you're focused on. In fact, I happen to be part of a conversation where somebody from the foreign aid community, approached you and was talking about the impact of the foreign aid freeze. And it was clear to me that you're still very much enmeshed in what's happening there and the impact. And so I just wanted to give you an opportunity to can you explain for us kind of what's the state of play right now? What's been the impact of the foreign aid freeze?
So thanks for a chance to be on. Thanks to the audience. Massive and harmful, and bluntly, quite likely irreversible, and immoral and illegal. So having chosen a couple of adjectives, let me justify and support a couple of those. I was the co-author of the 2024 SFOPS appropriations bill that specifically says you cannot restructure, reorganize, defund USAID without advance consultation with Congress and approval. President Trump, among a blizzard of executive orders in his first days, ordered a 90-day pause for foreign aid. Elections have consequences. Of course, President Trump and the new Republican majority in the Senate was entitled to look hard at our foreign aid priorities and ensure that they align with the foreign policy and the national priorities of the new administration. But that's not what this is. This is shutting down cold everything we do around the world in partnership with household name American-led NGOs and UN organizations. So World Food Program, UNICEF, International Organization for Migration. I've met with the heads of those three organizations. Many folks here have heard of Catholic Relief Services, World Vision, Save the Children, CARE. And because this shutdown was combined with a gag order to USAID staff, the furloughing or laying off of all the core headquarters staff and much of the field staff, now that Secretary Rubio has begun signing lots of humanitarian waivers, they're not effective. The money isn't flowing. The programs aren't being restarted. And literally tens of thousands of U.S. headquarters staff and foreign national staff for all the groups I just mentioned are being laid off. So that's why the urgent conversation in the hallway. And that's why this balance of soft power and smart power, soft power and hard power, which in combination leads to smart power, is of real urgent concern to me.
And to be clear, it's not just aid workers being laid off, but I think there was a case where people are dying.
Yes.
So a federal judge last week ordered the Trump administration to restore funding for foreign aid contractors. Is the way that this ends in the courts? Or is there a political solution? Something I think Politico's reported is there are Republicans who are taking note of what's happening. There's some bipartisan. Maybe some Republicans aren't talking about it openly because they would be challenging the president. But can you talk about some of the bipartisan conversations you've had and whether you feel like that's the way that this ends?
So first, I think there's lasting damage to our credibility. Foreign aid for decades has helped us push back against China and Russia, against human trafficking and terrorism, has helped us stabilize countries going through war, has helped us protect the American people from public health threats. There's an Ebola outbreak in Uganda, a Marburg outbreak in Tanzania. Literally, the people who were helping the public health systems of those two countries have been told, shut down, stop what you're doing, come home. I don't know that the judge's order in joining the funding shutdown will actually restore funding quickly enough to allow these organizations to avoid shutting down completely. First. Second, yes, there's a real divide between some of the Doge and MAGA extremists who say we should be doing no foreign aid. It's of no benefit to the United States. and Republicans who I've worked with for years, who I've traveled with and visited aid programs and projects around the world, who see it as a key part of the 3 Ds that Secretary Jim Mattis used to talk about: defense, diplomacy, development. I'll remind you, we spend less than 1% of our total federal budget on foreign aid. Your average American thinks it's between 25 and 30%, and that trimming, waste, fraud, and abuse in foreign aid is a way to deal with our deficit. There is a list of a small number of odd, strange, or embarrassing programs that were funded, many of them not through USAID, but through the State Department. There's no disagreement with Democrats and Republicans that we should look at and closely scrutinize and reform foreign aid. But to shut it down first and then have a conversation about it is putting the cart before the horse.
Some of that's driven, what I was hearing is that there are evangelical groups that are connected with foreign aid. There's also, agriculture interests, and there are Republican states that have agriculture interests. Is that driving some of the Republican pushback?
It's contributing. There's a whole group of Republicans who are expressing concern privately because of either the humanitarian impact or the national security impact. And yes, there's billions of dollars a year in U.S.-grown agricultural commodities that are purchased and then shipped overseas to help starving people. Farmers and the senators who represent them are concerned both about, the business impact and the humanitarian impact. Farmers and farm groups I've engaged with over the years are proud of the fact that out of the abundance of the American farmers and American people, we have fed hungry people around the world and helped stabilize conflict-ridden countries for decades.
I wouldn't ask you to speak for any Republican lawmakers, but are they communicating that? What we've seen in some of the moves of the Trump administration, some of the early moves that they've made, Republicans have conveyed privately to the Trump administration, hey, this isn't a good idea, whether it be a nominee or something else. Are you aware of anything, any of those kinds of conversations transpiring?
Yes.
Say more?
No. But I'll say this. Look, the latest issue, the administration has laid off several 100,000 provisional employees. Roughly 30% of the federal workforce are veterans because there's a very strong veterans preference, or at least that's what I read reported. There's a text chain going around now that there are a significant number of veterans who were laid off who were not in their first 2 years of employment. They've been employed 10 or 15 or 20 years. Because of some computer program glitch in one of the agencies, they were deemed provisional because they came in through the veterans preference, even though they'd been there for an entire career. There's also been some, I assume, unintended impact on the intelligence community and national security staff. The speed and forcefulness with which this is being done, I think, will inevitably have secondary consequences. I'm most focused on the humanitarian consequences of people being cut off from medicine and care and food, but we're going to see lots of other ripple effects.
I am, as a defense reporter, Politico, contractually obligated to ask you about your SACD chairmanship. I know you're new to the job, and I was wondering if you could say a little bit in a, just kind of level set, top priorities coming in.
Sure. So SFOPS is 62.5 roughly billion a year. SACD is 850 billion of the DoD, and then an unspecified amount for the intelligence community. I'm working with Mitch McConnell, who until recently was the majority leader. Senator McConnell and I have significant political and policy differences. But in the last year, it was very clear to me just how passionate he is about the defense of Ukraine. And I'm eager to work with him and with our valued European partners and allies in making sure that we sustain our investment. I'm interested in three things, if I could. Innovation and the cycle time for innovation. If there is anything we've seen in terms of technology and warfare in the Ukrainian war, it's that the Ukrainians have successfully pushed back against a much larger and a notionally, at least pre-war, far more sophisticated military with remarkable innovation. And I think our sclerotic acquisition and our research and development testing and evaluation system could learn a lot from that. So innovation and cycle time. Second is making sure that the money we're spending, which is massive and is about to get significantly larger, is being spent wisely. that we're not buying legacy systems that really aren't fit for purpose for the current moment. And last would be urgency. I think we face a genuine crisis in American security from an increasingly global and united coalition of at least 4 authoritarian regimes determined to do harm to the West and to America. And we are not acting with anything like the sense of urgency that sentence would suggest is required.
Are we likely to see a Ukraine aid proposal come out of the Senate? I mean, you're speaking about Mitch McConnell. I mean, he's shown in the last several weeks that he's willing to buck the Trump administration. I've heard from some of your colleagues we have to do it, which isn't the same as how are we going to do it.
So one of the things Senator McConnell has long shown an ability for is counting votes. And in politics and in the Senate in particular, if you can't count the votes and get them delivered, you can't get things done. Senator Graham, who is leading the delegation here, is also the chairman of the Budget Committee, is also the architect of what is about to be the real center of attention in Congress, which is the reconciliation process. I intensely dislike and disagree with the idea that we should deal with the Defense Department top line not through appropriations and regular order, but through sort of an end around on the reconciliation process. But either way, Senator McConnell will have an opportunity, either vehicle, to say, if you want my vote on reconciliation, you have to deliver this for Ukraine. I don't know. That's not something we've discussed, but just speaking hypothetically, for a small number of Ukraine hawks who really believe we owe it to our future and our children and our allies to stay in the fight, to remain a trusted and valued NATO ally and partner, and to remain in the work here, there's a moment of leverage that's right in front of us.
You're talking about reconciliation and boosting the defense budget. At the same time, there's this conversation going on about DOGE descending on the different government agencies. Are we going to see DOGE descend on the Pentagon? I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah.
They're already sending a team over
to the Pentagon.
I think I read this in Politico.
Oh, okay.
I'm kidding.
I've been here.
I'm not sure where I read it last
Yeah.
night, but I'll put it this way. There are DOGE teams preparing to take on just about every agency, and I can't imagine that the single largest agency by spending and workforce would be immune from it. Look, DOGE is led by a Silicon Valley disruptor entrepreneur group. I think there are some genuine potential complications in terms of conflicts of interest of some of the core players being government contractors. But the question...
Elon Musk has a contract with the Pentagon for Starlink.
I'm clear.
Yeah.
So, transparency, conflicts. But to be positive about something, there are a lot of legacy platforms that are still being acquired because of the home state congressperson, senator saying, you got to keep buying these. This is a chance to inject a little entrepreneurial urgency in terms of looking at new systems and platforms. It's also a chance for there to be some really ugly deals cut that don't actually serve our national security. And the question that we rely on a free and independent media to ask repeatedly is, why is this being cut? Why is this being added? What is this that you're changing? In a way, I think the right way to do this is through what we call regular order, hearings, oversight, appropriations.
Well, I was going to ask you if you, as SAC-D chair, were going
ranking.
We're going to focus on, oversight of these particular, this back and forth over what gets cut and what gets plussed up.
Absolutely. To the extent I can get the chair to agree, that would be a high priority for me.
All right. Well, I think we stuck the landing, and I know you have a hard out. We're out of time, although I hope we get to continue this conversation now that we're both in the same lane on the Hill. Thank you again. Thank you to the audience for sticking around. We're going to have to take a break from our programming, but stick around.